You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me, it's Joe Zamataro. Matt is not with us today. He's dealing a little bit of an injury, we'll call it. He'll be back soon, hopefully, though. But first and foremost, guys, welcome back to the show. Joe, I don't know about you. I had a great Gasparilla. Still recovering a little bit, but should be a fun show for everybody involved. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Wow, I guess not that good. Still recovering, I suppose. No, it was a great Gasparilla. Had a really good time. Saw a lot of people since I'm in the parade on the floats. Get to see a ton of people in the crowd. There was a surprisingly high number of Lightning Gasparilla jerseys that I got to see, and it was really cool just seeing the overall number of fans that actually did buy Gasparilla hats and other merch to go along. So it was pretty cool, even from the standpoint of just being a Lightning fan.
Yeah, Joe's beard's still looking good from the pirate. You get to enjoy the pirate look even after Gasparilla.
Well, we still have the night parade to go, which is true. In 2 weeks. That's when it'll peak, and then I have a feeling it'll probably all go away pretty quickly.
I still got my, this is from a couple years ago. I got a Lightning Gasparilla shirt on here, the blue one that they came out with that I do like very, very much. But you're right. I did see a couple of Lightning Gasparilla jerseys out there. I know the reaction to them was very mixed on what people thought of them. Some people loved them. Some people just didn't like them at all. It's kind of the reaction you get from those Gasparilla jerseys sometimes. I was surprised the Lightning, this was for those that maybe don't know, Lightning did release Gasparilla jerseys. They were an exclusive STM thing. They were not released to the public. STM's got an email about them, and then people posted some pictures online, and it kind of spread like that. But there are Gasparilla jerseys out there. They're just STM exclusive.
The cool thing about it, I think, is they're almost treating it, like we'd have the special warm-ups on certain nights, and they'd kind of change, and they're doing that, it seems like every year now with the Gasparilla jerseys. They sell well, and they have a slightly revised look every season, so it allows you to buy some new merch and still look fresh in your Gasparilla-inspired Lightning gear.
Lisa says that they were weirded. They were on the road for Gasparilla. You're right, because normally they do have a game here in Tampa on that Saturday, which we'll get into in this episode. Of course, we're going to recap all those games this week for you guys, talking about some quotes from JBB. He had a press conference earlier today. We'll talk about some of the stuff that he said. We'll look at the schedule ahead for the Lightning and our 3 stars of the week. But with that said, let's get right into it. Don't forget, you've already seen some comments jumping up below. If you guys want to get into it, join the conversation. We'd love to hear what you guys have to think and say. You can follow us on social media at RBLR Sports and at RBL Lightning, so you don't miss out on these episodes live if you want to join that conversation. All right, let's start with JBB in his press conference today. Joe, I don't know how much you saw of it. Gabby Shirley was posting a couple of the comments out there from his press conference today, and there's 3 quotes that she posted that I want to kind of focus on. First one, and Eureka can put this up on screen for us. So it's a long quote. JBB kind of rambles a little bit, but we'll put it up on screen if you want to see the whole thing. This one was about Isaac Howard and how well he's been doing. Howard right now, I believe, is still leading the NCAA in scoring. He's been doing really, really good. And JBB basically acknowledged all of that and how well he's been doing and how much of a better player he's been coming. Just nice to see that, a GM like JBB, who's very busy, checking in on his prospects, and Isaac Howard's getting that recognition.
Yeah, I didn't see the press conference. I was kind of waiting for us to discuss it here rather than jumping in into the middle of it. But reading that quote, looks like he's progressing quite nicely then. And, JBB being impressed with it. His increased size, his increased two-way skating from what I was reading in that, and just the fact that he's got more pop in his step. That's definitely exciting. Knowing that we've got a prospect in the pipeline that hopefully could make a real impact here in the next season or two coming up soon.
It seems like his move, because he's with Michigan State now, paid off to help him out, which is a good thing. Sometimes the change of scenery can really help a guy out, and Isaac Howard has been excelling. So like to see that from him. A couple of comments here quickly too. Got to sign Howard. I think he'll want some sort of guarantee though. He's got 1 year left in college. I imagine he would still get the rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken, that 3-year typical deal. So I'm sure the Bolts will get on that as soon as that he's eligible to get that deal done.
But also in terms of an organization that you want to play for, I mean, it goes around, those surveys go around all the time saying that Lightning's always one of the top ones. I don't think he's going to pass up a chance to play with someone like Kucherov, Braden Point, some of the talent that we have on the ice to try going anywhere else unless he's I don't even know what you could guarantee him to give him a better chance for success than what we have built here.
I 100% agree with you. He was on the Bolt Report. We had him on a little while ago, and we interviewed him. And one of the players he talked about wanting to definitely play with is Nikita Kucherov. Now, it doesn't come much of a surprise. Everybody wants to play with the great Nikita Kucherov, but hopefully we'll see him soon. I don't know how long it's going to be. It's probably still another couple of years. But it's exciting to see that JBB has noticed him and he is doing well down there in college. Quickly, a comment here too from Beverly as well. Did JBB mention if Crozier is coming back with Lilleberg out for 2 games? I did not see anything specifically on Crozier from the press conference, but I would expect Crozier will be back. He's been up and down all week, getting to play games in Syracuse and with Tampa, and with Lilleberg out 2 games, which we'll get to that suspension when we go over the Detroit game. I would expect Crozier to stay up. He did talk about J.J. Moser and his potential return, and basically said, this is still an ongoing process, hoping around the 4 Nations. We don't know exactly when, but he's getting there. So JBB did talk about J.J. Moser, who's been a big help for the Lightning. But the other quote I want to get to is the one about the trade deadline. Now, the trade deadline, still a little bit away, but JBB had some things to say about that upcoming. And this is essentially what he said every single year at this time, where when he was asked about if the Lightning are going to make some moves, he said, maybe yes, maybe not. If it's out there, we'll do it. If not, not too much to worry about right there. This is something, again, he has said year in and year out. So no really big surprise there. But again, he said that he is prepared to make a move. If there's a move out there that'll make this team better and have a better chance of winning a Stanley Cup, we are going to make that trade. So little bit of time to see how this all plays out. But nothing really new on the trade front even though JBB did already make a move, the Lightning did make a small trade. It was basically a prospect swap with the New York Rangers.
Well, I think there's, when we were doing the math, about $4.5 million of projected cap space come trade deadline. So there's not a ton of assets that the Lightning have that they can give up, unless you're talking about moving a piece like Geeky. I was talking with some other guys as to some potential moves that can be done, and it's kind of hard with the position that the Lightning are in. But $4.5 million is a decent amount. So, I think in the next couple of weeks here, we can start sort of seeing the moves that other teams are making, and then it can start to kind of look towards what we think the Lightning will be able to do. And I think that'd probably be a pretty good show for us to to have in the coming future, especially with some input from people in chat and commenting on the videos.
Usually you see the Lightning make about 2 trades per year ever since 2019. That's kind of what JB has done. It was Goodrow and Coleman in 2020, Savard in 2021, Hagel and Paul were the big ones in 2022, Janot and Isimont in 2023, then Dumba and Duclair in 2024. So it is JBB's MO to get involved in the trade deadline, and the Lightning have been linked to a couple of players out there. So we'll see when that time comes Daniel just said in the comments too here, 39 days till the trade deadline. So it's actually, a little bit closer than you think. Still a little bit of time, month away. A lot can change for teams on whether they're going to be sellers or buyers. And that's what JBB mentioned in that quote as well, saying that they don't really know yet who's going to be those teams that are looking for those future assets, but we should start to see that more as we get closer to that trade deadline spot.
Well, I mean, we definitely saw that Carolina made some big power moves. So I think that the whole Eastern Conference is going to take notice of that, and I expect there to be quite a bit of activity this particular trade deadline.
Yes. Well, the East tends to do that. They trade big blows with each other all the time. I feel like they're always doing that. And Carolina getting the piece that they did, it was Taylor Hall and Mikko Rantanen. Those are major, major pieces. By the way, what is Chicago doing? Third round pick for Taylor Hall, and then you had to retain salary too. I feel like that was not the best move for Chicago, but that's neither here nor there. This is a Lightning podcast after all. There is one more comment I do want to get to from JBB, and this is the big one. This is the one that people kind of took the most notice from, and for a couple of reasons. It was on how the team has performed this year and his thoughts on it, basically saying that he thinks the team is a better team overall and that they've improved, adding some guys like Ryan McDonough, Jake Gensel, Anthony Cirelli, Brandon Hagel, JJ Moser, Healthy Vasilevsky, the list goes on. But the big one from this quote was saying that, he thinks the team effort has been fantastic, that there hasn't been a game where they really didn't show up. And that's the one that's kind of gotten taken the most and put on social media. And it's kind of bad timing for JBB because he just had this tough week-long road trip, which we're going to get to shortly here. I don't know, Joe. Listen, I agree. The team is better overall. There's no denying that. If you look at some of the stats, and I have some numbers which we can go look at in just a second, the team is absolutely better. But I think there's been a couple of games where the effort hasn't quite been there.
No, I completely agree with that, but we also have to figure out which players we're talking about. Collectively as a team, I don't think there's been a single game where they didn't have an effort. It's just most notable because we're, once again, really top-heavy, that if you have a night where Braden Point happens to sleep in or Nikita Kucherov basically takes it off, we start to really, really, really struggle. And when you have one of our top guys struggle, this team doesn't quite seem as resilient as in years past. If Point isn't in a game, for instance, if Kucherov is making really bad plays, if Hedman is shooting into shin pads or makes a bad pinch, and God knows if Vasi's off, then this team kind of has a lot of trouble overcoming those things. Outside of that, you really do see, I think, the bottom guys, they work hard. I mean, Isamont is always flying down the ice, trying 110%. I can't ever remember seeing a game where I thought like Hagel or Cirelli weren't playing their best. So, yeah, I can see why people would be upset because you see some games where it's like, what team is this? But at the same rate, there's more to the team than just those four guys that I had mentioned before. But they just seem to be so critical that we notice a lot more if they're not playing at their highest level.
I think the other side of this too, and we'll get into this too when we recap these games, but they're losing division games, and those are often the biggest games, especially when it comes to standings, so that stuff gets amplified even more. Here are some of the stats. JBB actually opened his press conference with this. The Lightning are currently first in goals for in the league. They are 10th in goals against. Last season was 22nd. In 5v5 goals for percentage is 7th. Last season it was 25th, so a major improvement there, and that was kind of what you expected with the Gensel and Stamkos situation. Power play percentage is 4th, but percent is higher than when the team was first last year, which actually is crazy to think about because Lightning were, I think, near 30% when they were in first place. And then penalty kill is 7th, first since November 1st. So on paper, not bad at all.
There's a lot of things that the Lightning are doing right. That 5-on-5 play compared to last year has been, I think, a huge difference. The power play I think like they've been getting more zone entries, and when they really struggle is when they don't get a good zone entry. As long as they get in, the times that they don't score, they at least tend to generate some really solid looks every single time. And now that they're playing both Kucherov quarterbacking from both the right and the left side, they're obviously gearing up for being more dynamic coming into the playoffs. And some of those numbers, they look really good. The plus minus on the year has been excellent, but like you said before, man, losing divisional games really hurts. And I was just pulling up the standings. Usually we tend to do this towards the back end of the show, but looking at the standings right now, they slipped a bit. Now Bruins, even though they've got several games in hand, the Lightning have several games in hand. Let's go. Let me switch this over to our divisional setup here. The Lightning sit in 5th. The Senators and Bruins are once again ahead of them. Again, the Lightning have 2 or 3 games in hand on either of those teams, and they're only 1 point behind. But going, what is it? 5-4-1 in the last 10. I think they gotta sneak out a couple more of these wins, or at least get loser points.
Well, and with the games in hand, they're great, right? But you do have to win those games in hand to get right back up there. So they're not in danger of falling out completely. They've got the games in hand. They can easily get back up into the 3rd in the division, but they're going to have to win those games. And they could have comfortably been in that spot if they had won some of these division games. They didn't. So things get a little bit tighter here, which is, I think it's something that the Lightning potentially might need to address at the trade deadline. What that exactly is, it's hard to say. We'll see. Again, JB has a history of making moves at the trade deadline to improve this team, so I still expect it to happen.
Eureka, maybe you can help me out and pull up what the Lightning's record over the past couple of seasons have been for just January and February, because I do feel like they always take that slump right before the trade deadline, or maybe right after All-Star break. There's always that slump that they go in, and hopefully that's all that we're seeing. They get their stuff back together. Having Moser come back will be a huge thing defensively, and they can get back on track.
Should mention too, Beverly asked earlier, JB mentioned about Crozier coming back with Lilleberg out for 2 games. And we do have news to report. I like collectibles mentioned in the comments too here as well. Gage Conclaves and Carlisle both got recalled. So expect them to potentially mix into the lineup here for the Lightning coming up for their next game. Those guys are back up. Nothing too permanent. All these guys are usually up and down when Lilleberg comes back after his 2-game suspension, which again, we'll get into that Detroit game. But those are the 2 that are coming up right now. So expect them to make some impacts here for the Lightning now back here at Amalie Arena, starting tomorrow against the Chicago Blackhawks. So just wanted to mention that those are 2 guys that have been called up. So it looks like it's going to be Carlisle, at least on the defensive side of things. It's going to get the shot here for the Bolts. All right. Let's jump into some of these games, Joe. Not great things to talk about, mostly because it's 3 losses to the 1 win. But starting off against the Toronto Maple Leafs, the first of the 4-game road trip the Lightning had, the first half of a back-to-back. It was not Andrei Vasilevsky in net for this game, which did surprise some people, but Jonas Johansson, who got in net. Vasilevsky had struggled against the Toronto Maple Leafs in games past. And, you kind of look at this game as it was better than the last couple times the Lightning had played the Leafs, but the Leafs still very much controlled this game. The Lightning were down. They came back they made it a 4-3 game, a 1-score game in the 3rd period, but could just never find that equalizer and could never tie this game up. And Toronto wins it 5-3 after scoring a late one.
It looked to me like it was a game where the Lightning just made mistakes, and those mistakes were ones that Toronto capitalized on. If you give Austin Matthews a partial breakaway, you expect him to score more often than not. I'm sure people are going to label me a JJ apologist at this point, but look at all 4 of the goals that went in against them, and maybe Vasi, could have been a little bit better, but there's a reason why
Johansson in net in this one. Oh, you're talking about for the previous games.
Yeah. So, maybe Vasi could have saved 1 or 2 of these, but Johansson, there's a reason why he is a backup goaltender, and that's because he's not going to make the saves that you don't expect him to make. One-on-one with Matthews, what can you do? There were two more where there's a guy wide. Was he with the? I think there was two more with a guy wide open in the slot that beat him, and then one more that was just a complete screen, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, it was really bad defense, and a couple of those were straight up off of turnovers or just bad reads. And if the Lightning didn't make those mistakes defensively, I thought that JJ made some amazing saves, especially in the first period to keep the Lightning in it. It really hurts when you get burned making a mistake, the other team capitalizes versus them, outworking you. It's kind of a self-inflicted wound.
Well, defensive breakdown is the word I'm going to use throughout this whole week. That's what happened to the Lightning multiple times. The second goal the Toronto scored, Matthew Knies just slipped right past the entire defense. That's really tough on Johansson to stop. The screen you mentioned, Joe, that was also Matthew Knies right in front of the net. He got a rebound, easily put it in. And then, of course, you had the empty net goal as well. So, it was positive to see that they were playing better. They were able to score some goals. Nick Paul had 2 goals against Toronto. Where have we seen that one before? Nick Paul scoring 2 in Toronto. But unfortunately, the defense just wasn't there. And, if you're going to put up 5 goals against, that's really, really tough to beat out every single time in those offensive shootouts.
Absolutely, and it is kind of funny that we were talking before the game in the podcast that what the over under we kind of thought this one would be, and I think our number was 7, something like that. That we were saying there would be 7 goals, and then through two periods, there was 4. So we were thinking that it wasn't going to be a high scoring game, and
then the
sure
third period
enough,
happened.
Then the third happened.
Yeah, a lot more goals scored in the third period, and the over does hit. So, congratulations if you took the over in that one. It did go success, not in the Lightning's favor, but the over did hit in that game. So, Lightning get done with Toronto, 5-3, tough loss, but then they head right to Montreal again on the back-to-back. So, a late night traveling, they get into Montreal. Vasilevsky in net for this game, and the Lightning lose this one by a final score of 3-2. And this one, I would say, a tougher pill to swallow, Joe, because the Lightning were up 2-0. Up 1-0 after the first period. Then Jake Gensel scores early in the second period. Things are looking good for the Lightning. And then in the span of a couple of minutes, Lightning quickly fall apart. Some big defensive breakdowns again. Montreal ties the game and it eventually scores late in the third period. And the Lightning can never get that equalizer, but a tough game to lose, especially after going up 2-0 in this game.
It was I thought a pretty decent start for the Lightning, and that they were controlling play for a while. But then, man, that the power play goal from Slafkovsky from no angle, and Vasi was hugging the post, but somehow just had a hole somewhere, and it went in from on the short side, which is not something that you expect Vasi to give up. But it did seem like that was one of those goals that kind of changed the momentum. It gave Montreal confidence, and then what was it? 2 minutes later, there's a defensive coverage breakdown, and a puck went straight to a guy wide open in the high slot for a one-timer that there's no way Vasi could have reacted fast enough for. The Lightning kept battling in this one, though. I mean, if you're going to say one game that the Bolts battled really hard, I thought they tried to get back. They just didn't get the puck luck. They hit some posts. They had some opportunities. Montembeault made some ridiculous saves. And then there was that, how late was that when I was like with a couple minutes left, 2 minutes left? Another kind of defensive coverage breakdown for a one-timer to beat Vasi, and that was all she wrote.
Let's give credit where credit is due. Montembeault, man, that guy a couple of times now has done very well against the Lightning. It's been kind of annoying, but yeah, he played it. He played a very solid game. You look at the stats. Lightning had 35 shots on goal to Montreal's 22. Face-offs, they led in that 50 to 49% close, but the biggest one here too, the power play. Lightning power play goes 0 for 4, whereas Montreal goes 1 for 2. So able to capitalize on their chances. Lightning quite couldn't do it. Can you attribute some of that to being on the back-to-back, guys being a little more tired, possibly. And listen, the power play is not going to work every single night, even when listen, there's a reason even the number one power play in the NHL, those usually the high teams on the power play usually are like 28%. That's not a lot of goals on the power play, even the best team. So you can't rely on that every single night. Lightning, unfortunately, couldn't come through on this one and suffer the loss on the back-to-back.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, the back-to-back part, they looked like they had some energy in that third, though, and even putting up 15 shots in the third period. They really were working. I wish there was a stat that we could easily pull up that's talking about how many posts were hit. But, I mean, there was a lot of really – for this one, there certainly would be. And there was a lot of really dangerous scoring chances that the Lightning were able to generate, but – sometimes that puck luck just comes back and says the game's going to go another way. And I think it stings most because it was on this road trip. It was so late in the game, and this is a game that they probably should have been walking away with 2 points and just weren't able to.
And so the Lightning 0 for 4 when it comes to points out of these 2 games in the back-to-back to start the road trip. It's tough, but, listen, they played Toronto, then they played Montreal on a back-to-back. They played decent against Montreal. It was a close game, probably should have had one, but you'd hope, okay, you get a couple of days off here. You got 2 more back-to-backs again. Just ridiculous, but we'll get into that later. And hopefully the Lightning could bounce back. Technically, they did, Joe. They got the win against the Chicago Blackhawks by a final score of 4-3 in overtime, but they made this one a little more stressful than maybe you would have liked. Obviously, the Blackhawks still not one of the better teams in the NHL. They just traded Taylor Hall. They're a very young team and still learning, and there were a lot of defensive breakdowns in this game, giving guys some wide open opportunities. I believe it was the second goal Chicago scored where you had 3 Lightning players pinch on one of the Chicago players along the boards. Guess who's wide open and alone in the slot? It's a Chicago player to score an easy goal. Stuff like that. And Chicago got up to a quick lead. Lightning able to come back, though, thanks to a late power play goal by Jake Gensel in the third period. And then Chicago took a late penalty in that third period, which carried over into overtime. And who else but Nikita Kucherov is able to end it. So Lightning get the win, but not exactly the way you thought it was going to go.
Yeah, much more difficult of a night than we were wanting it to be. There was yet another guy that scored his first career goal against the Lightning, and I'm trying to remember, Dotch. Colton Dotch, congratulations on picking up some garbage, getting your first NHL goal and one of the best goalies. It seems like that's something that the Lightning will do every now and again. I do want to say, though, a play that got me out of my seat was that no-look pass that Kucherov had for the first goal for the Lightning, right to Mitchell Chaffee. Big dogs in the slot, and he put home a one-timer with the being a right-hand shot, the puck coming from the right. Man, the Kucher's pass right to his tape. I think that was just an amazing vision by him.
Felt kind of like that Ross Colton goal that they scored against the Panthers in that playoff series. A little bit different situation, but that same kind of situation where he's down in the corner, and next thing you know, the puck's right on the tape of a guy sitting in the slot. This time it's Mitchell Chaffee, and a great shot by Chaffee to get in the back of the net. You're absolutely right. That was a great goal for the Lightning. Kucherov had a great game in this one, 3 points, the 2 assists, and a goal at the end of the game to win it. That was the big difference, too, in this power play, 3 for 3. Remember, I mentioned earlier the Lightning power play did not come through for them this time. It did, with it going 3 for 3. Chicago's 0 for 2. By the way, shots in this game, 40-14 in favor of the Lightning. So the Lightning were shooting the puck. They were shooting the puck a lot, and Chicago was not. But, that's, again, you go back to that word, defensive breakdowns. If you're going to give Chicago these quality chances, it's not going to take much. I mean, they score 3 goals on just 14 shots alone. And the puck was now bouncing the way for the Lightning, and it makes that game a 1-goal game going into overtime.
Speaking of overtime, I loved the reaction that Kucherov had when he scored that one, because you can tell that it was one of his a fake slap shot pass that he was trying, but it happened to go in, and he'd rather not have scored, and and passed it to somebody and it go in, then score basically what's a bad goal, because his reaction was great. Just almost looked, I don't want to say defeated, but it was just like, what happened here? He was supposed to save that. Like he looked disappointed in his game-winning goal.
Only Nikita Kucherov can be disappointed when he scores a goal and has that great of a night. Just that guy, man. He truly never ceases to amaze me. It's great. Unfortunately, the good times did not continue for the Lightning, having to head to Detroit on this again, another back-to-back, their second one of this. And this is a long road trip. I think they got in Detroit at like 3 a.m. So you've been on the road all week long. And now you're on another back-to-back. And they lose this game by a final score of 2-0. This was a close game. The first goal for Detroit did not come until the second period. They take a 1-0 lead, and the second goal was an empty netter when the Lightning were trying desperately to tie this game. I will say in the third period, which is the little bit that I did watch, because I don't know about you, Joe, but I was a little bit busy on Saturday night because, of course, that was Gasparilla. So,
is that what it was? Because I didn't remember.
Yeah, me and Joe were out watching this game somewhere, and that's all. We'll leave it at that.
Let's say where we were, because those that know. We're right near Curtis Hickson. We're at the hub post parade, and we were there because they had the Lightning game on.
That is 100% true. And we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I'm sure everybody was hit and miss in this game, or was having some fun at Gasparilla. A fantastic parade, by the way. Once again, job done. Good job by Tampa to put that on again. But I did catch some of the game, and the Lightning, it's hard because you don't want to use the excuse of the back-to-back and the long road trip, but that's what it felt like. The Lightning were tired in this game. Detroit was fresh, and they could never quite get that puck lock. They made a great push at the end of that third period. They had a lot of chances there to try and tie it late. I just couldn't quite get it, and then Detroit gets the empty net, and those are tough games to win. Very, very tough games to win. So
it's got to be a tough game to watch, too, a one-goal game until an empty net goal. That's got to be a tough one to watch with one that's on the road as well.
Absolutely. So it's unfortunate the Lightning drop another one here, and you look as a full on the week, they only get the one win, but this schedule did not help. Let's put it that way. The Lightning did not play great all week long. There were a lot of defensive breakdowns. There were a lot of mistakes in this one, but the schedule definitely didn't help them either. So a tough week for the Bolts overall, but that's some of the stuff you have to battle through. And that's part of the reason, Lightning are behind in games played. They have to make them up at some point. And unfortunately for the Lightning, it's through a lot of back-to-backs. We mentioned at the beginning of the month, they've had a back-to-back every single week of this month. I believe next week is the only week that they do not have a back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been a tough month for the Lightning.
Yeah, and so Eureka did pull up those stats in terms of how we've done historically in the month of January and February. And just to go over them real quick, I was off by a little bit. Starting in January 22, 8-3-1, 23, 9-4-0, 24, 9-3. This month we went 6-7-1. So historically, I guess we've been pretty decent in January, but he brought up February's month, which is the one that's concerning. In 22, they did well with a 5-1 record, but then in 23, it was 5-4-3, 5-6-1, and who knows how we're going to end up doing this this coming month. But hopefully they had their off month for January.
Let's hope the months are flipped this time around, so they don't have to suffer through another bad month. We'll see how things play out, but. You're right, though. This is the general time that the Lightning sometimes have a little bit of trouble. Let's go to our 3 stars of the week. Joe, a little bit of tough week to pick out some of the stars, obviously, because a lot of guys' stats did not look great. You only had the one win, so that makes things a little more difficult, but I still think we picked out a couple of good ones here. Our third star of the week goes to a guy who wasn't on the score sheet a ton, but, he was out there hustling. It felt like every shift, making an impact for the Lightning, and that is Mikey Eyssimont. He had 1 assist on the week for the 1 point and was in even when it comes to the plus minus in that category. So Mikey Eyssimont here gets the 3rd star of the week.
And he was grinding all week long. Man, the number of wraparound attempts that he tried was absolutely insane. He tried it over and over and actually did convert because I think it was Gensel that buried the rebound on one of his wraparound attempts. But he always goes in there and plays with a lot of heart, and I thought it really showed in this downturn of a week.
It's nice a lot of the times because Mike Eastmont is a guy you can rely on even when things aren't going great. He is looking good, almost as good as you can look if you head over to shop.rblrsports.com and check out some of the awesome team-inspired merch that we got over there for you guys. Lightning, Rays, Bucks, Rowdies, you name it. And the best part is for all of our viewers hanging out with us today, you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order. Links, as always, are in the description below, so be sure to go check that out and pick yourself up some awesome merchandise. All right.
Hey, before we go to the number 2 star, something that we did miss on the Toronto game that I did have in my notes, but I skimmed over it. The attempted Michigan that Austin Matthews and got stuffed by Johansson. Man, what a great job for Johansson to get tall and seal off the post on what could have been a highlight reel goal for a long time.
That would have been a tough one to watch as a Lightning fan, seeing that one, because you're right, it would have been on the highlight reels. And I don't even think Johansson knew. I mean, he didn't
100% that he saw it out of the corner of his eye, that he picked it up, because he picked it up fairly early.
Saw it. Mm-hmm. And he got up high and he made a great save. You're 100% right. I'm glad you brought that up because it should be mentioned. That was a great save by Johansson. Kept, the Lightning have a history of keeping certain guys off a big milestone or big goals, I should say. It was, who was it that stopped Matthews from scoring 60? Matt Tompkins the last time. So Tompkins and now Johansson denying Austin Matthews. And there you go. Comment here quickly too from LA Collectibles. Wraparound goals needs to be on the stats just for Mikey Eastmont. I love that. There should be some fun stats out there for guys. Give me a fun stats section. I would love that. All right, time for our number 2 star of the week. This one is a guy who, showed up pretty good offensively, especially for being a defenseman. And that's none other than the captain himself, Victor Hedman. He gets the number 2 star of the week. He had 4 assists. Very nice for him. Was a -2 on the week, but all things considered, actually not that bad when you consider how tough of a week it was for the Lightning when it comes to the goals again. So Victor Hedman gets the number 2 star of the week.
Yeah, I didn't realize this. He, didn't really take much he's not one that, takes a lot of penalties, but he didn't take but 2 minutes this, in this span. And when you're playing with teams that it could be really easy to do against someone like Toronto, when you start getting running around in games like did happen a little bit for Montreal, it's easy to take some penalties. But he's been really disciplined this year, which is a great thing. I certainly would have thought that he would have been worse on his plus minus based on a couple of the mistakes. But when you're driving offense as well, he was a big part in making some key assists. And did he get the secondary assist, or at least one of the assists on the game-winning goal for Chicago? I believe he did. Yeah, he was a primary assist on the overtime game-clinching goal too.
Yeah, you know what? His offense showed up, and that was huge. It kept a lot of these games close. Didn't quite get what they wanted, I'm sure, as a whole defensively wise, but his offense and some of his defense gets him the number 2 star of the week. So the number 1 star, though, this was an easy pick, I think. It's a guy, he can really just do it all. It's pretty darn impressive. It's Nick Paul, who gets the 1st star of the week. He had 3 goals and was a +1. I believe, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to double check real quickly. Yes, he was the only player on the Lightning this week to be a positive +-. So Nick Paul really having a fantastic week. His best was probably the Toronto game where he scores 2 goals, but nice to see him getting into full swing here. He was one of the big acquisitions for the Lightning back along with Brendan Hagel in 2022, as we mentioned earlier, and he came through this week.
Yeah, and I thought he was probably his best game was against Toronto, I think. And, he got a power play goal in that one. He was just all over the place. He definitely had a moment to shine, if you will, and playing some big minutes. When he's on, that really does help so much with the other players, and he's had a couple of weeks where he hasn't looked his best. I don't know if it's being tired or losing a little bit of confidence, but this week he played significantly better. He had 5 shots in that Toronto game. I mean, that's a big deal to be able to get open in order to generate those opportunities, and I hope that we're going to see a even better player in the back half of the season now.
That would be great. Really help out the Lightning, especially with this little bit of mini slump they're in. Good to see Nick Paul getting moving. Comment here from Beverly. Thank you for reminding me because I did forget. She asked, what did I miss for the Lilleberg hurt? Suspension ×2. So yes, Lilleberg was suspended for 2 games for his hit on Comper in the Detroit game. Joe, I don't know. Did you see the hit that Lilleberg had in the Detroit game?
Yeah, it was. I think it's literally the exact type of hit that they're trying to eliminate from the game. I'm not surprised that he got it. He's a good player to hit, but this was, I think, not his best judgment call. It was a guy going across basically across the blue line, makes a pass, and the guy watches his own pass. Then Lilleberg hits him from the blind side and primarily targets his head. It's, I think, by the book, exactly what they're trying to get rid of because it's a very dangerous play, and it was also kind of late. It was a little bit. What's that? You don't think it was late?
It was definitely.
Yeah.
Late. No, it was.
Yeah. So, not a great hit. Do I think that he's a dirty player? He's a really heavy hitting player, but I think that's one of those ones that he's going to want back and wish that he didn't do it. He'll serve his time, and hopefully he'll be smarter for it.
It was 100% a late hit. I'm not surprised he got suspended. I think I was a little surprised that it was 2 games because I don't think Lilleberg's been suspended before. I could be wrong on that. But the way you described him as being a heavy hitter, I think is a great way to say it. Like, he throws those big hits. And if that hits on time, it's still higher at the head area, which is a little bit iffy, but it makes it the lateness on top of the higher area hitting to the head is what made this combined a bad hit.
And open ice blind side as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it does have any sort of impact as terms of how long his suspension is, but he did get a game misconduct for the cross check to the face of the player, 2-3 weeks ago.
That's right.
Can't quite remember. I don't know if that goes into figuring out the suspension length at all, but I mean, that is something that they would take note of and probably want to stop these sort of things before he turns into a player that they actually have to worry about hurting guys on the ice.
And you never want to see that, of course. You don't want guys like that on your team. It's not a great thing. It's not a great look, and it hurts the team when guys like this get suspended. So hopefully he will learn from it, like you said earlier.
I'd say,
by the way,
let me really clarify, because I know I'm going to get lit up in the comments and on Twitter and everything for saying that. I'm not saying anything bad about Lilleberg. I want him to continue being a great player. I just know what happens when you start getting too many suspensions and you start getting labeled. I don't think he's a player that is necessarily dirty. He's just a hard, heavy hitting guy, and he made a mistake in this case. So
he's 23.
I love this kid. I really am looking forward to him improving his game, and I don't want to see him get sidetracked because of suspension stuff.
I know some people are down on him right now. If you look at some of the comments about Lilleberg's suspension, a lot of people are actually kind of happy that he's out of the lineup for the Lightning for a little bit. But listen, he's 23 years old. He's shown a lot of great potential, and those big hits have brought some big energy for the Lightning a couple of times throughout these years he's been on the team. So it's tough. Hopefully he learns from it and gets better.
He has exactly right now 1 season of games played, 82 games played in his entire career. So he's got it, and defensemen develop later by nature because it's a different spot you have to be a little bit smarter for. So he's come a long way, but he's got a long way to go still, and I think he's doing all right.
Beverly asked if he is a target now. I don't think he's I believe you're asking like if he's gonna when he comes back or guys gonna be looking for him. I'm sure Detroit would be because, you got hit in the head and it was a late hit. So I'm sure they're not happy. And, hockey players tend to remember that kind of stuff. But he's not like a Tom Wilson right now or, something like that. This is one of his, if I'm not mistaken, it's his first suspension. It's not something he does super often. So I think it's kind of a one-off situation. We'll see if that continues. Hopefully not. But I would say he was a target, though.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Respectfully, he's not anybody that's played enough ice time for other teams to even really worry about him. So, I think he'll be fine.
All right, let's look ahead here for the Lightning and their upcoming schedule. They are back home, as I mentioned, here at Amalie Arena in Tampa. They'll be taking on the Chicago Blackhawks tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's the 28th of Tuesday. For those who may be watching this not live, which, by the way, if you're not with us live, don't forget to follow us on social media, ring that bell for notifications, all that fun stuff so you don't miss out and you can hang out with us live. Then they'll be taking on the Los Angeles Kings on Thursday, the 30th, that game again at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then we are headed into February, where they'll be taking on the New York Islanders on Saturday, the 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern. And they'll be back for another show to recap all of that. So a 5-game homestand coming up, 3 games here this week for the Lightning. The nice thing is they're spaced out. They don't have any back-to-backs this time. So round of applause for the NHL schedule makers not throwing another back-to-back on the Lightning here once again. But these are big games, Joe, I would say, because you had a little bit of a struggle there on that long road trip. You've lost some tough division games, but you're back home now. This is your, I guess you could call it a get-right homestand, win some of these games, get out ahead on the points before you have to go back onto the road here again.
Yeah, and the Kings are a really tough team. They have a better record than the Lightning do right now, but they are going to be dealing with a back-to-back themselves as they play Florida on the 29th and then play us the next night. I would love to see that the Lightning get kind of back into the groove of things by just basically mopping the floor with Chicago at home. I want to see them put up some big numbers, and then getting really stingy and defensive with their game against the Kings, because the Kings don't allow a lot of goals against. So you have to make sure that you're not giving them the opportunity to go up and then not have the ability to counter. So it's going to be a good week, I think. A weird week, only having the 2 games, a little bit of rest, but this is I'm calling it. This is our crappy month for the season, and this is where we're going to start turning it around.
I like where your head's at. I absolutely hope that it does come true. You got the 4 Nations break coming up here very soon, next month in February, late in the month. But big games for the Bolts back at home in front of the Amalie Arena faithful. Guys, I think that's going to do it for us in this episode. Thank you so much for everybody who came in and hang out with us here live. Again, don't forget to follow us on social media at RBLR Sports, at RBR Lightning. Share this episode if you did enjoy it. It really helps us out. We really do appreciate it. But that's going to do it for us in this one. We'll talk to you guys next time. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.